Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Glasgow Times News Podcast, normally recorded in our studio at the Bishopbriggs Media Centre, currently recorded from our volunteers' homes. To keep in touch with us, use our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, which are all at Q and Review. That's CUEANDREVIEW. Or get in touch via information@qandreview.com. That's information at CUEANDREVIEW.com. Please like and share our podcast and give us any constructive feedback.
People are starving. Glasgow councillor slams 3.6 thousand Govan Christmas tree cost. An article written by Sarah Hilly. A councillor wants answers on why the council is set to spend £3,600 on a single community Christmas tree, after a local supplier said they could do it for £150. Councillor Dan Hutchison has been fighting to get the festive cost down after officials put forward proposals for a local council budget in Govan to spend £12,700 on lit-up trees. The Scottish Green politician is worried about fritting away vital public cash on Christmas trees amid the cost of living crisis. This week it was decided the Govan area will get one council-funded tree this year, in a bid to keep costs down. Councillor Hutchison said, "I'm concerned as the price is ridiculous. I'm not a Grinch. I understand people want Christmas trees, but people are starving and folk can't heat their homes." People in the community have passed on a quote for £150 tree to the councillor, as he has been gauging local opinion on the issue. The Govan politician said, quote, £150 seems so much better than £3,600. I don't understand how a tree, some lights and a bit of electricity costs £3,600. He added, "We are challenging the council department on how they did procurement." The issue was raised at the recent Govan Area Partnership meeting, when it was proposed as an option that £12,700 could go towards trees from the partnership area budget, which totals about £90,000. A meeting of partnership members opted today for one tree only at Govan Cross to be paid for by council central funding, with the local area budget remaining untouched. They are in discussion about spending £100 only on a potential switch-on. Councillor Hutchison said he is happy about the decision, as, quote, "the area budget is the closest mechanism for the community to decide where the funding goes, and to spend it all on trees instead of the cost of living crisis, I think is the wrong way forward." End quote. A full council meeting today will see Councillor Hutchinson asking for more details from the council, and he has put forward the following question. Could the relevant convener please advise why it costs £3,600 to put up a Christmas tree in our communities? Proposals originally put forward to the Govan Area Partnership were a Christmas tree at Govan Cross costing £3,600, lighting at 3 trees at Lith House roundabout for £9,100 and a tree at Ibrox Library for £3,600. That article was written by Sarah Hilly. Ex-Labour councillor censured by Watchdog over, quote, "SNP cuts hurt Glasgow," end quote, caption. An article written by Drew Sanderlands. A former councillor has been censured by the Standards Watchdog after using a background which stated, quote, "SNP cuts hurt Glasgow," end quote, during an online meeting. Martin McElroy, ex-Labour councillor for Springburn/Royston, displayed the caption over photos of overflowing bins and piles of rubbish while speaking at a Microsoft Teams meeting in the run-up to the Scottish Government elections last year. Mr McElroy, who was standing as a candidate for Glasgow Provan, later posted an offensive image of the background of his councillor Facebook page and wrote, warning offensive content. A complaint over his conduct was submitted to the Ethical Standards Commissioner by former SNP councillor Jennifer Layden. The acting commissioner, Ian Bruce, completed an investigation and sent a report to the Standards Commission for Scotland. Members of the Standards Commission ruled Mr McElroy had breached the councillor's code of conduct after a hearing in Glasgow on Wednesday. They decided the ex-councillor, who did not attend the hearing, had used council facilities for party political or campaigning purposes during the pre-election period. It was also deemed his actions were disrespectful to his fellow councillors, the meeting chair (the Lord Provost), and council officials. The censure means the Standards Commission's severe and public disapproval of the councillor's actions will be recorded. The hearing panel said Mr McElroy couldn't be suspended as he's no longer a councillor, and his conduct did not warrant disqualification from holding office. At the meeting in April last year, an SNP councillor said the background was highly inappropriate. Mr McElroy agreed to blur the image after a request from the Lord Provost. The Labour councillor said, "My apologies to anyone who that background may have offended. It wasn't my intention." He later added, "SNP cuts have been biting Glasgow for 14 years. We need proper funding for our city. Our city deserves better." The council's legal team removed part of the webcast of the meeting, showing the background before it was posted online. Mr Bruce, the Commissioner, decided there had been a breach of the code, but said the panel would need to determine whether Mr McElroy had freedom of expression under Article 10 of the European Convention of Human Rights. He believed Mr McElroy was entitled to express the views that he did. Quote, "I felt that it would be difficult to take the view that his Article 10 rights were not applicable in this case," he said. "However, I do understand that there may be a higher expectation when it comes to conduct in the chamber. I do understand that this is magnified during the pre-election period." Mr Bruce also said there was uncertainty over whether Mr McElroy had used his council-issued laptop to attend the meeting. The councillor had been unable to recall and couldn't find evidence of the background on his laptop, while council officials also weren't able to confirm. Michael McCormick, the Standards Commission member who chaired the hearing, said, "The panel considered that former councillor McElroy's actions, which were subject of the complaint, had the potential to damage the reputation of the council and result in the failing to comply with legislative requirements. Mr McElroy's decision to use the background was ruled to be disrespectful, as the Local Government Act 1986 prohibits councils from publishing any material that could be perceived as seeking to influence public opinion or promoting a particular candidate or political party." Officials had issued guidance to councillors before the meeting, which reminded them council resources could not be used to support a party or election candidate. The Lord Provost, who was chairing the meeting, had reminded attendees about the guidance. The hearing panel decided the 1986 Act's intention of enabling fair elections was a sufficient reason to interfere with Mr McElroy's freedom of expression. Panel members believed, regardless of whether Mr McElroy used a council laptop to attend the meeting or published the Facebook post, it was evident council facilities, officers, services, software and webcasting were used at the meeting. Mr McElroy, in a written submission, had said he had been trying to express views on behalf of his constituents, and he had not considered the background would have breached pre-election guidelines. He said the background mirrored an amendment to the motion being discussed by the council during the meeting, which referenced alleged failures by the council administration on waste disposal. He claimed his actions would be classed as business as usual rather than campaigning. That article written by Drew Sandilands. Man 84 dies after being hit by car near Glasgow. an article written by Esther Tierney. A man died after being hit by a car near Glasgow. Road policing officers were called to a collision involving a blue Honda Civic and a pedestrian which happened around 9:20 a.m. yesterday in Hallcraig Street car park in Airdrie. The 84-year-old pedestrian was taken to Queen Elizabeth University Hospital, where he was pronounced dead a short time later. The car park was closed for around 4 hours while investigations were carried out, and reopened around 1 p.m. Officers are now appealing for anyone with information to come forward. Sergeant Andy Curry said, quote, "Our thoughts are with the family and friends of the man who died, at what is a difficult time for them. Our inquiries are ongoing, and I am appealing to anyone who witnessed the crash and has not yet spoken to police to contact us. The pedestrian had driven a red Ford Fiesta car to the area, and we would ask anyone who saw this car and the Civic prior to the crash to get in touch. Additionally, if anyone was in the area at the time and has dashcam footage which may assist, I would ask them to contact us." That article written by Esther Tarney.
Evening Times, October 27. Call for Glasgow AC/DC Memorial as the band celebrates 50th anniversary. Report by Craig Williams. A Scottish radio presenter and DJ has backed calls for a memorial in Glasgow, paying tribute to the founding members of AC/DC ahead of the 50th anniversary of the band. Brothers Malcolm and Angus Young, who formed the Australian rock band in Sydney back in 1973, spent their early years living in a tenement flat on Skerryvore Road in Glasgow's Cranhill area. A decade earlier, when Angus was aged just 8 and Malcolm was aged 10, they emigrated to Australia with their family, including 6 siblings, on the so-called £10 Palm ticket, a scheme which saw over thousands of Scots take up the offer of a new life down under and a chance to escape post-war rationing and a housing shortage. The calls for the memorial come ahead of the 50th anniversary of the band in 2023, an anniversary which has already prompted the Royal Australian Mint to commission a series of commemorative coins to mark the landmark birthday of the band. DJ Jim Gillespie said he thinks it would be a good call for Glasgow to commemorate the Young brothers, especially given the fact that a statue to former AC/DC frontman Bon Scott exists in his native Kirriemuir in Angus. The life-size bronze statue was unveiled back in 2016 on the 10th anniversary of Bonfest International Rock Festival, which pays tribute to the singer, and was paid for following a successful 2-year crowdfunding campaign that attracted headlines around the world and was also supported by AC/DC. He said, "The Youngs are arguably Scotland's greatest musical export, despite making their home on the other side of the world. It would be great if the 50 years were recognised back in their hometown. I think it's a good call, especially with the Bon Scott remembered, with the statue in Kirriemuir and also one in Australia." The DJ believes that, rather than in Cranhill, the ideal place for a memorial would be in Glasgow city centre, near to where Scotland's premier rock venue, the Apollo, once stood. It was a 1978 concert at the venue that was used for the live tracks for AC/DC's first live album, If You Want Blood, You've Got It, a concert which is regarded as being one of the best of their career, and one which saw the band dress in Scotland football strips for the encore, to paying homage to the homeland of both Youngs and Scott. He added, "There should be something, even like a paving stone. The ideal place for it would be round about where the Apollo was, rather than sort of where they grew up, because it would get lost out there." Ivan McKee, MSP for Glasgow Province, said he fully supports any plans for a memorial celebrating the young brothers' remarkable journey from Glasgow's East End to rock and roll superstardom as part of a rock band widely considered by music fans to be one of the greatest and influential of all time. He said, "As young lads in the 1960s, Angus and Malcolm's experience of emigrating to Australia so that Dad could find work was all too sadly shared by many Glaswegians. The story of their journey from Skerryvore Road to global fame with AC/DC is remarkable, and their contribution to the music industry is immense. I fully support any plans for a memorial to this success, which was born out of Cranhill." Among those also backing calls for a permanent memorial to the band is Cranhill native Dougie McEwen, a former classmate of Angus Young's at Millencroft Primary, who also used to deliver newspapers to the Youngs' household prior to their move down under. Mr. McEwen suggested a memorial could be put in place near to where the Young brothers grew up, and he said, "You could have some sort of plaque located near the water tower in Cranhill to say that 100 yards down the road was the close that the Youngs grew up in. I recall exactly where it was on Skerryvore Road as, believe it or not, my mate, who was a year and a bit older than me, used to have a paper round, and he delivered papers to the Youngs, and I occasionally went with him. He would have been 8 or 9 at that time, delivering the Evening Citizen." Report by Craig Williams.
From the Glasgow Times, Friday the 28th of October 2022, from the news section, exclusive: disabled Glasgow couple and kid sleep rough in the airport after EasyJet cancels flight. This article is an exclusive by Kirsty Feerick. A daughter is furious at EasyJet after her disabled parents were left sleeping rough in an airport. Linda McMahon, 37, from Pollock, has slammed the budget airline for the disgusting way it treated her family on Sunday. Helen McMahon, 59, who suffers arthritis, and Stuart McMahon, 65, who battles severe MS, were abandoned in London Gatwick for around 12 hours after their flight was suddenly cancelled. The family were also travelling with Linda's sister and her 3 children, all under the age of 11, along with Linda's brother, who struggles with learning difficulties. They had to take turns sleeping in a hotel lobby sofa before hiring a minibus themselves to take them home the following morning. Speaking to the Glasgow Times, Linda said, "I am disgusted at how my family was treated by EasyJet. I couldn't believe it. I was desperately trying to get them a new flight home or accommodation, but everything was cancelled or fully booked. They had to take it in turns sleeping on a couch in a hotel lobby attached to the airport. It was a nightmare. When my parents found out that they may not get a flight until Wednesday, they just bit the bullet and hired a minibus home, which they took shift driving. Not everyone would have the money to pay for that, and some people would be really stuck. It was chaos. Storms happen, flights get cancelled. I understand that, but EasyJet should not have just abandoned my disabled parents." Helen also spoke to the Glasgow Times about their experience, saying, "We were left sleeping rough in a hotel lobby with lots of other customers. The stress and anxiety has been a lot for us. I saw people crying, including staff. We were out of pocket about £1,900 after paying for the minivan, food, and missing a day's work because of the experience. You would think they might have put buses on or offered some sort of help, but they didn't. It really took the polish off our holiday. The family had been returning from a cruise and had planned to grab a connecting flight from Venice to London to Glasgow when the chaos struck. They arrived in London and boarded the plane, but were told since it was too heavy, they would have to leave their luggage behind to be shipped. Helen decided to stay behind with the bags and catch another flight, but then at around 9 p.m. the entire flight was told to get off the plane as it had been cancelled over bad weather. It was then they desperately looked for other ways to home or a place to stay, but instead shared a couch and reception at Sofitel London Gatwick before renting the minibus. Now they are anxious to use the travel agent again and are hoping for compensation for their ordeal. A spokesperson for EasyJet said, "We are very sorry for the family's experience following the cancellation of their flight from London Gatwick to Glasgow on October 23rd due to thunderstorms delaying the flight, which led to the crew reaching their safety regulated operating hours. The safety and well-being of our customers and crew is our highest priority. We did all possible to minimise the impact of this disruption, providing options to rebook or a refund, and, while we always look to source hotel rooms for our customers when needed, due to the difficult weather impacting all airlines at Gatwick, hotel availability in the area was very limited, and we are sorry for any difficulty the family experienced as a result of this. We always want to ensure that customers who require special assistance receive the support they need at the airport, and so we are looking into their experience with the airport and their special assistant provider, who are responsible for providing this to our customers. We are in contact with the family to apologise for their experience and reimburse them for any expenses they incurred." And that article was an exclusive by Kirsty Feerick. From the Glasgow Times, Friday the 28th of October 2022, from the news section, "Green light given for new housing development in Glasgow," by Marissa McWhirter. A major development that will see the West End get 48 new flats has been given the green light by Glasgow City Council. The proposal from development company Nixon Blue will see 2 new residential buildings raised in B Street in Partick. The Glasgow-based company is planning to invest around £8 million in the B Street construction, which will create 50 jobs for building and construction workers. Each new flat will have 2 bedrooms and access to a private outdoor terrace space. The building site once housed 3 tenement buildings, pre-1973, before they were demolished to make way for the Clydeside Expressway. The site was purchased in May 2022, with the goal of returning residential flats to the area and supporting the regeneration of the Clydeside. Plans include details to reroute and upgrade the existing cycle path along the expressway, and the area will still be transformed by the construction of a new bridge for cyclists and pedestrians connecting Partick and Govan. Each 6-storey building will be similar in scale to the existing tenement flats and modern housing developments in the area. Colin McIntyre, director of Nixon Blue, said, "The designs are in keeping with the scale and math of B Street housing and the surrounding tenement buildings. As a popular residential area, we want the new apartments to support the regeneration of the Clydeside, as the new Govan Partick Bridge will greatly link the city and its residents. Redeveloping on this site will support, connect and reinforce this area of Partick as a vibrant residential area." And that report was by Marissa McWhirter. From the Glasgow Times, Friday the 28th of October 2022, from the news section, "Man jailed at the High Court in Glasgow for raping woman while she slept," by Grant McCabe, court reporter. A woman was sickened to discover a video of a man raping her years earlier as she slept. The victim suffered a campaign of physical and sexual abuse at the violent hands of Alan Alexander. This included him battering her after he forced her to leave an award ceremony at a plush hotel in tears. Prosecutor Ailey Robertson yesterday told the High Court in Glasgow how the woman discovered the video on a computer they had both used. Ms Robertson stated, "She found the footage she had made of him having sex with her. It was dated 2012. She was very shocked when she found the video. It lasted 17 minutes and she was clearly asleep throughout. She had no idea he had done this until she discovered the video years later." There was also a second clip, not dated, which had him appearing to molest the woman and him smiling into the camera before she awoke. Alexander, 37, is now behind bars after pleading guilty to the rape and 5 other charges involving the woman between December 2010 and January 2021. The crimes mainly occurred in Ayr and Prestwick, both Ayrshire, as well as Glasgow. He will be sentenced in December. The other charges included him raping her when she was awake to find him having sex with her. Ms. Robertson stated, "He once made a comment to her that if anyone found out what he was doing, then he would get done for rape." She regularly suffered physical violence, which included him attacking her while she asked for music to be turned down. He also left her hurt on the day she started a new job, and she further needed urgent medical treatment while on holiday abroad. Ms. Robertson stated, "He once told her that she would wake up one night and he would be at the bottom of her bed with a knife." Drunken Alexander joined the women at an awards ceremony at a hotel in Glasgow in 2019. The Advocate Depute stated, "He was threatening towards her and her colleagues. She ultimately left in tears. In the taxi, he threatened her with violence when they got home. She was scared. He attacked her back at the house, leaving her curled up in pain." Ms. Robertson stated, "He went on the group chat set up by her colleagues and told her, 'By the way, you F,' explicitly deleted, 1, meaning an award. He then threw the phone across the room." The women bravely reported him to the police in 2021. Alexander was, by this time, in HMP Kilmarnock, but refused to leave his cell to speak to officers. The court heard he already had another conviction involving the same woman. As well as the 2 rape crimes, he also admitted assault, filming sexual activity while the woman did not consent, another of leaving her in fear of alarm, as well as engaging in abusive behaviour. Prosecutors are seeking a non-harassment order, banning him from contacting the women again. Lady Stacey remanded him in custody, pending reports. And that report was by Grant McCabe. From the Glasgow Times, Friday the 28th of October 2022. From the news section, Starbucks Christmas menu returns with 7 new items to try, by Lewis Mackenzie. Whether you're ready or not, the return of the Starbucks Christmas menu signals the start of the festive season. Nothing is quite as indicative of Christmas as seeing gloved hands holding those famous red cups. In order to get that festive kick, to get you into the mood, or if you just fancy something different to try in your usual Starbucks order, you're in luck because the full festival menu launches in stores next week. There are items for ice drink lovers, hot drink favourites, and some food to accompany whatever your choice of beverage is. Starbucks 2022 Christmas drinks menu. Iced coffee fans, you're in luck. The festive flavour favourite Toffee Nuts is now in chilled version. Enter the Toffee Nut Cream Cold Brew. The Starbucks Cold Brew is brewed in small batches, combining cold water with ground coffee and steeped for 20 hours to create a smooth and mellow coffee with a rich flavour. If you're looking for something comforting and a cosy option, look no further than the new Praline Cookies Hot Chocolate. Matcha sauce and velvety steamed milk with a buttery cookie flavour and notes of cream caramelised hazelnut, almond and walnut for a toasty finish, topped with rich chocolatey whipped cream and a dusting of cookie crumb and sprinkles. Starbucks Christmas Drinks UK. If you're a traditionalist when it comes to festive drinks, we hear you, and don't worry, the Starbucks classics will be returning. If you can't find the caramel waffle latte, the toffee nut latte, gingerbread latte and eggnog latte, all available to enjoy with your own customisations. Starbucks Christmas food. If you're looking for a festive snack, then how about the brand new Pigs Under Blanket roll? Made with a Vienna roll, layered with sausages, maple cure bacon, sage and onion mayonnaise stuffing, mature cheddar and smooth cranberry chutney. For more traditional festive flavours, try the new and improved brie and cranberry focaccia, or the Tis the Season turkey sandwich and the festive feast panini. For the toffee nut lovers, try the new toffee nut muffin, injected with caramel, topped with toffee frosting, drizzled with milk chocolate and sprinkled with hazelnuts. Or, if you fancy a bite for tea time, grab the new toffee nut mini loaf cake, or ginger mini loaf cake. When is the Starbucks Christmas 2022 menu available? You can get your hands on these festive favourites on Thursday, November the 3rd. The new beverages will be available to enjoy from Starbucks stores and drive-thrus across the UK while stocks last. Full UK Starbucks Christmas menu. Toffee Nut Cream Cold Brew, new. Praline cookie hot chocolate, new. Toffee nut latte, returning. Caramel waffle latte, returning. Gingerbread latte, returning. Eggnog latte, returning. The reusable red cup, returning. Colour changing reusable cup, new. Pigs under blanket, new. Festive feast panini, returning. Brie and cranberry focaccia, returning. 'Tis the season turkey sandwich, returning. Toffee nut muffin, new. Toffee nut mini loaf cake, new. Ginger mini loaf cake, new. Red velvet loaf cake, returning. The Christmas tree brownie, returning. Chocolate and caramel muffin, returning. And that article was by Lois Mackenzie. From the Glasgow Times, Friday the 28th of October 2022. From the news section, teenager due in court in connection with serious assault in Glasgow. By Marissa McWhirter. A teenager was due to appear in court after he was arrested and charged in connection with an alleged serious assault on Renfield Street. It comes after it was claimed that a 62-year-old man was assaulted at around 3:30am on Sunday, October 9. Police say the injured man was taken to Queen Elizabeth University Hospital for treatment. The 19-year-old was due to appear in court on Wednesday, October the 26th. Glasgow Times understands the alleged incident occurred near a KFC outlet on Renfield Street. And that report was by Marissa McWhirter.
Glasgow Times News on Monday the 31st of October. Councillor disappointed with progress to make Glasgow parks safer with lighting. An article written by Drew Sandilands. Glasgow's council has been accused of kicking the can down the road when it comes to lighting the city's parks to improve safety. Campaigners called for lighting to be installed last year after the issue came to the fore during COP26, when residents were forced to walk through Kelvin Grove Park late at night due to a police diversion. At the time, the council said it didn't encourage people to use parks at night, partly because lights would disrupt nocturnal wildlife. But Councillor Jill Brown, Labour, secured support for a motion in December last year, which agreed the council would explore all the necessary infrastructure to provide sensitive lighting solutions in our parks. However, she's been disappointed with the progress. 1 year on, there are no more lights in our parks and there's no greater accessibility during the hours of darkness, she said. Consultation sessions are being held to gather views on lighting, but Councillor Brown questioned why meetings are taking place in dark parks. She said the council resolved to prepare a paper on the necessary infrastructure to provide sensitive lighting solutions in our parks. What we've had so far is a holding paper, and I've since been advised that there will be meetings in parks in the dark to consider lighting options. I can only imagine holding a meeting in a dark park will confirm that lighting is needed. I'm also not entirely clear why those meetings needed to wait a year until the following winter for darkness to fall. Councillor Brown, who represents Partick East and Kelvindale, added, I'm advised that a further interim paper will come this year with a further paper at some point in the future. The point this so clearly raises is that when it comes to providing lighting in Glasgow's parks, this can could not be kicked any further down the road if the administration tried. A spokesperson for the council said, We're currently implementing the plan previously reported to our Environment Committee that proposed an evidence-led approach to lighting solutions in parks. 3 parks were identified for inclusion in a pilot programme, and engagement sessions with community representatives and other stakeholders have already been held for Cranhill Park and Queen's Park, with a Kelvin Grove session to be held in the coming days. To understand the challenges with each park and to generate discussion around specific locations, types of lighting and other possible measures, it was agreed some part of the sessions would take place in darkness in each park. These sessions were scheduled for October, when such an after-dark setting could reasonably be achieved, and this approach appears to have been well received by those present. A report on the engagement sessions will be tabled at the Environment Committee in November. An article written by Drew Sandilands. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 31st of October. Energy support vouchers worth £400 are going unclaimed. An article written by Emilia Kettle. Customers using prepayment meters have not redeemed vouchers to help pay energy bills, according to the BBC. The unclaimed vouchers began on the 1st of October, when households should have begun to receive their first instalment as part of the government's energy bill support scheme. However, figures from the one in-store payment company have shown that only half of the expected value has been claimed. But now a government spokesperson has told the customers to apply their credit to their meter as soon as possible. The credit is part of the Energy Bill Support Scheme that was first announced back in May and applies to England, Wales and Scotland. The scheme means that everyone's energy bill will be cut by £400, applied over 6 months, with reductions of £66 in October and November, and then £67 every month between December and March next year. People that use prepayment meters need a topping up key or card, with the energy bill help coming in the form of vouchers. But now the payment company PayPoint has told BBC News that it's expected to process 800,000 vouchers worth £52.8 million in October. However, the business shared that only £27 million has been redeemed. Now, PayPoint and fuel poverty charities are urging those eligible to go through their post in case they've missed the delivery. It comes as the vouchers are only valid for 90 days and once expired cannot be claimed. The vouchers are being sent out by post, email or text and can be redeemed with the post office and Payzone. In the UK, more than 4 million people have a prepayment meter, with nearly half on the older non-smart meter, according to the energy watchdog Ofgem. An article written by Emilia Kettle. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 31st of October. Figures show calls to the NHS 24 abandoned due to long waits. An article issued by the Glasgow Times news desk. More than 340,000 calls to NHS 24 were abandoned before the caller was able to speak to an operator in the first 9 months of 2022, the Scottish Conservatives have said. The party has called on Health Secretary Humza Yousaf to get a grip on the country's health system after it obtained the figures through a Freedom of Information request. Almost 120,000 of the dropped calls occurred during 3 months, in July, August and September. July saw the longest single wait recorded for the year, with one caller waiting almost 3 hours to get through. This is despite pressure on the NHS typically decreasing during the summer months. Waiting times of 2 hours or more were also recorded in January, March, May, June and September. The figures showed that so far this year, the average time for waiting to speak to an operator stands at 19 minutes and 4 seconds. In July, the average waiting time was nearly 24 minutes before a call was answered. The figures come after the launch of a new NHS 24 call centre in Dundee, which was announced in January as a move to help facilitate the increase in demand for the NHS 24 service. Sandesh Gulhane, Scottish Conservative health spokesperson, put the blame on Humza Yousaf, the Scottish Government Health Secretary. He said, "This is just another symptom of Humza Yousaf's dire mismanagement of our NHS. It's shocking and deeply worrying that hundreds of thousands of Scots chose to abandon their calls to the NHS 24 helpline because it was taking them so long to speak to an operator. Patients are doing the right thing by calling NHS 24 for advice before attending A&E or their GP surgery. Yet, as it stands, Scots are waiting so long on the phone that a huge number are giving up before getting the crucial medical advice they need." Dr Gulhane, a Glasgow MSP and practising GP, said unless it was addressed there would be more pressure on the NHS over the winter months. He added, "Not only is this likely to pile even more pressure on our buckling A&E departments and ambulance service, but it's extremely dangerous for patients who may need urgent medical advice. Unless Humza Yousaf gets a grip on Scotland's floundering emergency healthcare system, we'll only see more and more NHS services overwhelmed this winter." The Scottish Government has been contacted for comment. An article issued by the Glasgow Times news desk. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 31st of October. Glasgow claim vandals are identified after graffiti sprayed at the Botanic Gardens event. An article written by Stuart Patterson. Organisers of a Halloween light show have said that they have been passed the names of people after an appeal when their installation at the Botanic Gardens was vandalised. The Glasgow Times reported bosses at Glasgow by It Is On claimed on Saturday that parts of their display were painted with obscene graffiti, which they believe is in relation to climate activism. After photos and a video were released, they said that a member of the public came forward claiming to identify those involved. It Is On said, following a massive team effort, the event production team was able to remedy the vandalism and open the event on Saturday night. Glasgow has high-definition CCTV and 24-hour security in operation whilst on in Glasgow's Botanic Gardens. Organisers would like to thank the public for their support and are working with the police in relation to the individuals involved. Earlier, Police Scotland said on Saturday, October the 29th, police received a report of vandalism that took place earlier that morning at an event in the Botanic Gardens. Police inquiries are ongoing into this report, and anyone with information that may assist the inquiry should contact us. When contacted by the Glasgow Times about the identification claims, police said they had nothing to add. An article written by Stuart Patterson. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 31st of October. One of the city's tallest buildings will create nearly 500 homes to rent. An article written by Sarah Campbell. A group of guests were invited to climb to the top of a new build-to-rent development that's set to be one of Glasgow's tallest buildings this week. The 20-storey addition to the Glasgow skyline is being delivered by contractor Graham on behalf of Platform and will create 498 homes between the city's International Financial Services District and Finniston. A mix of studios, 1, 2 and 3-bedroom flats will be available at the site, which will also house a state-of-the-art gym, bar area, 2 roof terraces and a cinema room. For a topping out ceremony, project team members were invited to don their hard hats and make their way to the roof of the building to take in unrivalled views across the city. Matt Wilcock, Development Director at Platform, said, "We're really proud to see Platform Glasgow achieve another milestone, and it was great to get everyone involved together to mark it." Gary Holmes, Regional Managing Director for Graham Building North, said, "As demand continues to outstrip the supply of new homes available for rent across the city, it's fantastic to see Platform Glasgow quickly taking shape. The unique offering will not only boost housing supply, but also create a thriving community along the River Clyde." An article written by Sarah Campbell. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 31st of October. Plans for former Dobbies Garden Centre in Hamilton unveiled. An article written by Shannon Milmain. A planning application has been made to South Lanarkshire Council to convert a former garden centre into allotments at Shatlaroe Country Park. The former Dobbies Garden Centre could be turned into an allotment growing site made up of 81 plots. The application was received by South Lanarkshire Council on October the 4th and validated on October the 14th. Plans also include 22 raised beds, an Natsol composting toilet, 2 potting sheds and 1 shipping container on the vacant site within the park. The applicant sought pre-planning advice from the council's planning department, who said the change of use would be considered as reasonable. The council's roads department was also consulted, which confirmed that the proposals would have no adverse impact on the existing car parking provision within the park. Historic Environment Scotland was also consulted and stated that they would welcome the reuse of this currently vacant site as an allotment site. The site for the proposed plans was at Dobbies Garden Centre and then an Amazing Ponds and Gardens. The building for these businesses has since been demolished. Standard consultation began on October the 19th and will end on November the 2nd. The deadline for determining the application is December the 13th. An article written by Shannon Milmain. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 31st of October. Poppies will look different for Armistice Day this year amid important change after 54 years. An article written by Kieran Doody. Poppies will look different ahead of Armistice Day for the first time in 54 years, after a change in manufacturing. For the first time in nearly 5.5 decades, poppies will not contain plastic in a bid to be more eco-friendly. The Royal British Legion said, "We've been working with suppliers and the relevant experts to produce a new poppy that has minimal impact on the environment." The Legion is committed to reducing the amount of single-use plastic. You'll see poppies being sold everywhere in the lead-up to Armistice Day as the nation remembers servicemen and women who have represented the armed services of Britain and the Commonwealth. As well as seeing the poppy sold in public places, including in railway stations, shops and cafes, you can order one online at the official Poppy Appeals shop. The Royal British Legion website states, "This is a physical reminder of all those who have served and sacrificed, with British and Commonwealth soldiers, sailors, airmen and women represented, together with members of the emergency services and civilians, ensuring that no one is forgotten." Traditionally, poppies are worn from October the 31st, 11 days before the Armistice Day on November the 11th. You will often see Royal British Legion volunteers in public spaces with collection buckets. The poppy should be worn on the left breast, close to the heart, according to some. However, the British Legion website states, "We often hear people debating the correct way to wear a poppy, but the truth is, unless you're currently serving, there is no correct way. It's a matter of personal choice whether someone chooses to wear a poppy and how they choose to wear it. We simply ask that if you do wear a poppy, you wear it with pride." An article written by Kieran Doody. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 31st of October. Royal Mail staff cancel November strike dates. An article written by Rebecca Carey. Royal Mail workers have called off planned strikes due to take place in the next few weeks following a challenge from the mail service. A series of strikes by members of the Communication Workers Union, or CWU, has taken place in recent months following a dispute over pay and conditions. More action had been planned for November, but this has been withdrawn after a letter from the Royal Mail's legal team was received. The union has withdrawn the industrial action notices over the next 2 weeks, including on November the 2nd, 3rd and 4th, and the 8th, 9th and 10th following the letter. 10 days of planned talks will resume between Royal Mail and the CWU at ACAS today in another bid to reach a resolution. The strikes will then resume on Saturday, November the 12th, the union has said. CWU General Secretary Dave Ward said, "We recognise the deep frustration felt by many members over this decision, but the fact remains that the current direction of Royal Mail doesn't benefit the company, the community or the country. We still need to secure a decent future of this industry, and no attempt to attack our union and our members will change our determination in fighting for that. The current focus of the coming days will be negotiations that can hopefully achieve a sensible deal to end this dispute. In the meantime, I appeal to our members to stand by their union, stay strong and don't be provoked." CWU Acting Deputy General Secretary Andy Fury said, "We entirely understand the anger felt by many over the decision, but we believe it's a necessary move to protect our dispute. Our members have been facing down serious harassment from the highest levels of Royal Mail as they defend their industry and those communities they serve. They'll not be forced into submission so easily, and we'll be reminding the company of their determination at ACAS in the coming days." The withdrawal comes amid concern over the disruption to postal services during the upcoming peak mail periods, such as Black Friday, Cyber Monday and the Christmas build-up. Royal Mail said in a statement, "The Communication Workers Union has announced it's withdrawn planned strike action in the next 2 weeks. The CWU has withdrawn strike action following Royal Mail writing to the union to highlight numerous material concerns with the formal notification of planned rolling strike action. Royal Mail and the CWU have planned talks at ACAS on Monday, October the 31st. We'll continue to do all we can to keep businesses, companies and the country connected." An article written by Rebecca Carey. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 31st of October. Sex offenders in Scotland change their names in a dangerous loophole. An article written by Sarah Campbell. It's been revealed that hundreds of sex offenders in Scotland have changed their names over the last 3 years. Since 2019, Police Scotland has received 521 notifications of sex offenders changing their identities. Under existing law, they're permitted to do so, although police must be informed. A Freedom of Information request from the Scottish Conservatives to Police Scotland found that there were 161 instances of sex offenders changing their names between 2019 and 2020, with 162 the following year. The number rose again to a high of 198 between 2021 and 2022. Glasgow pensioner Esther Brown was raped and murdered at her flat in the city's West End last year by a man who had changed his name. He'd previously served a prison sentence for rape. Calling for action to close what he calls a dangerous loophole, Scottish Conservative MSP Russell Findlay said Esther Brown's killer was able to hide in plain sight just by swapping his surname, despite being convicted of a heinous sex crime. It makes my blood run cold to think that hundreds of potentially dangerous sex offenders are free to wipe the slate clean and roam free in society with the full knowledge of the authorities. People would have no idea if someone living next door is legitimate or hiding a serious conviction, and SNP ministers must close this dangerous loophole before more innocent people are harmed. A Scottish Government spokesperson said sex offender notification requirements apply to an individual, irrespective of what name they use. Registered sex offenders are obliged by law to notify the police of any change of name. In Scotland, the vast majority of registered sex offenders in the community comply with the notification requirements imposed upon them. Swift action is taken by the police in the minority of cases that do not comply, with those in breach facing penalties of up to 5 years in prison. An article written by Sarah Campbell.
Evening Times, October 31. Lifestyle. Remembering the Glasgow venue where Nirvana played for £6 a ticket. Report by Anne Fotheringham. It is the Glasgow venue which has played host to a galaxy of stars, but it is not where you think. The Smiths, Nirvana, The Fall, Belle and Sebastian, even Billy Connolly has graced its stage. It is not the Barrowland, nor the Apollo, it's the QM. The Queen Margaret Union at Glasgow University was originally established in 1890 as the Women's Union, and it has become a celebrated music venue, attracting crowds from all over the city in the last 5 decades. For its 50th anniversary in 2018, staff, student and bands who played the historic venue shared their stories and memories for a special exhibition. At the time, then President of the Union, Mata Durkin, said, "The QMU has an amazing musical legacy that has seen some of the biggest bands playing its stage over the past 50 years. The first major act to appear was The Move in April 1968, the band that played to around 700 students who each paid 12 shillings, 60 pence entry, with the venue allowing drinks to be served until 10 p.m. Since then, every genre gets a look in, from prog rock and psychedelia to rock, folk, punk and heavy metal. Motorhead, The Who, Thin Lizzy, Sir Cliff Richard, Siggy Sputnik, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Queen, Garbage, Franz Ferdinand, Billy Clyro, Coldplay, Wet 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 and Orange Juice have all played at the 900 capacity venue. Discos were introduced during the 1970s, with DJs including Radio Clyde's Tom Ferry, former STV presenter Paul Coyer and John Peel doing sessions at the venue. In an article in the Glasgow Times to promote the anniversary exhibition, Douglas T. Stewart of the BMX Bandits said, "I have many great memories of shows at the QMU. I think the first show I saw there was Mark and the Mambas in 1983. That was a side project for Mark Ammond of Soft Cell. I was a big Soft Cell fan. He is such an electrifying performer, and I thought it was the best thing I'd ever seen. The next year I saw the Smiths there. It was the time of their first album, and it was an exuberant and joyous affair. In the 1990s I have fond memories of going upstairs to say hi to Kurt after the Nirvana show. We talked a bit about music that we liked, and I gave him a BMX Bandits t-shirt, which he put on. Nirvana played the venue, and tickets were £6. Gary John Kane, bass player with the Proclaimers, said, "I have been lucky to watch bands and actually play on that great stage at the QMU. My standout gigs were the Redskins in 1986, the Stripes in 2016, and the Fall in 2017, which was emotional for all Fall fans. The atmosphere at the QMU is up there with the best of them." Report by Anne Fotheringham. Evening Times, October 31. Opinion. Mike Daly says, "It is not too late to apply for EU settled status here." By June last year, around 250,000 European Union citizens had applied for settled status in Scotland under the EU settlement scheme. More than 141,000 applicants were granted settled status, giving a permanent right to reside, while more than 100,000 were granted pre-settled status, a right to reside that can become permanent upon 5 years of continuous residence in the UK. No one knew the actual number of EU citizens in Scotland, or indeed those from the European Economic Area, the EEA, which includes EU countries plus Iceland, Liechtenstein and Norway. The overall official number was most likely a significant underestimate. The scheme had an expiry date for applications by June 30 last year for those who were resident in the UK by December 31, 2020. However, the UK Home Office then issued guidance for late applications, including for those who did not apply by June 30 last year, and for certain groups of people who became resident in the UK after the original cut-off date. The reason this is so important is because, without a late application to EUSS, an EEA citizen may be unable to exercise preserved rights to work in the UK and obtain access to essential public services. This can lead to severe destitution for families who experience a life crisis and then seek public assistance. Last week, Govan Law Centre, GLC, assisted an EEA family who had been doing fine until they had to leave their accommodation. Many EU citizens in Scotland are on the UK national minimum wage of £9.50 per hour. The cost of living crisis has exacerbated private sector rents, which are unaffordable for most low-paid workers. The clients had been referred to GLC by Positive Action in Housing's migrant project. GLC raised an urgent petition for judicial review in the Court of Session, challenging the local authorities' refusal to provide homelessness assistance. The council refused help, as they considered the family subject to immigration control under Section 119 of the Immigration and Asylum Act 1999. Yet the family had applied late to EUSS and had a Home Office certificate of application. This is the formal document the Home Office issues while it examines a settlement scheme application. It advises, while an EUSS application is pending, a person can live in the UK, work once your employer has verified your certificate of application with the Home Office, study, use the National Health Service in a similar way to permanent UK residents, access public funds such as benefits and pensions if you are eligible for them, and access a current account with a bank or building society in the UK. The law here is a legal maze, and it is not easy to navigate even for lawyers. As far as I can work out, a person with pre-settled status, including in my opinion an active application, can continue to use their free movement rights to qualify for housing or homelessness services. This is because such rights are saved in law under a Brexit statutory instrument for up to 5 years after June 30, 2020, until she or he qualifies for EU settled status. So long as a person with a certificate of application for pre-settled status continues to meet the conditions for a right to reside, including being a job seeker or worker, they are not subject to immigration control for Section 119 of the 1999 Act and qualify for housing or homelessness services. In the GLC case last week, the EU family was subsequently accommodated by the local authority to the great relief of all concerned. It is unfortunate the Scottish Government's 2019 statutory Code of Guidance on Homelessness is out of date on this area of law. Its Chapter 12 on EEA citizens has simply been deleted. It contains a footnote to helpful guidance from the Convention of Scottish Local Authorities, COSLA. But COSLA's Chapter 15 EEA guidance says this section is currently under review. Clearly, any EEA national without EUSS status should consider whether they can make a late application. The Home Office gives examples of grounds to do so, where a parent has failed to apply on behalf of a child, where a person has or had a serious medical condition which meant they were unable to apply, or where someone is a victim of modern slavery or is in an abusive relationship. Other grounds include where someone is isolated, vulnerable, or did not have the digital skills to access the application process, and where a person was unable to apply by the relevant deadline for compelling practical or passionate reasons, including the pandemic. If in doubt, take advice from a law centre or firm of immigration solicitors, says Mike Daly.
From the Glasgow Times, Tuesday the 1st of November 2022, from the news section. 14 businesses closed amid cost of living crisis in and around the Glasgow area in October. By Marissa McWhirter. The cost of living crisis is continuing to threaten the closure of businesses in the Greater Glasgow area. This month, we reported 14 business closures in and around the city, with many of them blaming rising energy costs on the decision to close. Businesses are also struggling to meet inflation and rising food costs, and sadly, many have not survived the current economic climate. Wildflowers on Duke Street. The cafe, which specialised in gluten-free produce, was forced to close after 6 months as rising costs forced the difficult decision. Number 2 Montgomery in East Kilbride. The team at this popular eatery made the decision to close as trading became unsustainable with inflation and rising energy bills. Good Egg on Eldersley Street. The team behind 5 March announced that they were extremely sad about having to close their newest ventures due to the cost of living crisis. Bauhaus on Dumbarton Road. The closure of Bauhaus in Partick surprised local residents as they ceased trading after 2 years without notice. Blue Arrow Jazz Club on Sauchiehall Street. The popular city centre bar and live music venue closed due to hard times, upsetting a number of jazz fans in Glasgow. Wheat on Govan Road. The popular brunch spot announced the closure on social media with a very heavy heart. Beat 6 in Denniston. Beat 6, a restaurant opened by Nico Simeone for the Beatson Cancer Charity, announced the location would be closing on October the 16th, but hoped to open a new location next year. Raunchy in Denniston. The Raw Vegan Cake Shop and Cafe will close after a 6-year journey, after the owner went through various personal life changes, including getting married. Meat in the Middle, Paisley. The Paisley restaurant announced it was with deep sadness that it was closing and said that they had had no help to aid its survival. Kip Chippy in Inverkip. Kip Chippy, run by the de Mellas family, closed its doors for good after 5 years. My Kitchen in Gourock's Kempok Place. The restaurant, which had been open for 6 years and won countless awards, was forced to close as soaring energy bills reached £20,000. Frankie's on Braidholme Road. This local convenience store was forced to close after major works carried out by Scottish Water caused him to lose the majority of his passing trade. Nat West in Glasgow. Nat West announced the closure of its Glasgow branch as the latest move in its transition to online banking. Nuffield Health closes jacuzzis. This major gym announced that while facilities would stay open, Nuffield Health would stop running their spa pools to meet rising costs. This article was by Marissa McWhirter from the Glasgow Times, Tuesday the 1st of November 2022, from the news section. Billy Connolly meets Glasgow fans after visit to Castle Fine Art Gallery, by Sarah Campbell. Billy Connolly stopped by a Glasgow art gallery before taking time to chat with excited fans yesterday. It is understood that the beloved comedian made the trip to Queen Street to sign a selection of his artwork which is on display at Castle Fine Art. The Sun reports that the 79-year-old was in fine spirits as he spoke with fans outside the venue, telling one, "It's good to be in Glasgow." Speaking previously to Castle Fine Art, Connolly said, "People think I paint or draw things on purpose. I don't. I just draw. And then as it goes on, it becomes obvious what it's going to be, to me. And then I can think about it along those lines, a horse, a man or a balloon. That's when I name it at the end." Paintings on sale at the gallery include a collection of Scotty Dog posters priced at just under £1,500 each. The Glasgow Times revealed last month that the Biggin had paid a visit to popular Ingram Street restaurant Mediterraneo. He posed with a member of staff who later posted the photo on social media with the caption, "Serving a Glasgow legend, Billy Connolly at Mediterraneo." That article was by Sarah Campbell. From the Glasgow Times, Tuesday the 1st of November 2022, from the news section. Former neighbour claims Peter Tobin buried missing victims near Kent home, by Stacey Mullen. A former neighbour of serial killer Peter Tobin believes his other victims could be buried in a cabbage field. The woman who lived next door to Tobin claimed she saw him using a wheelbarrow to take waste to a cabbage farm next to his former home in Kent's Irvine Drive. The beast passed away at 76 last month. He was serving 3 life sentences for the murder of 15-year-old Scots schoolgirl Vicky Hamilton, Polish student Angelika Kluk, 23, in Glasgow, and Dinah McNichol, 18, in Essex. But he never revealed the names and whereabouts of other victims he is thought to have killed. The woman told the Daily Record she thought remains could be found at the site. She told the newspaper there was an alley that led from his back garden via a gate to empty garages. It was just a few minutes' walk, but you could see Tobin struggled with the weight of the wheelbarrow at times. We sometimes saw him tipping the contents of his wheelbarrow into a cabbage field, but one night when a friend and I were out walking the dogs, we saw him close to the derelict garages. He was hunched over his wheelbarrow, meticulously tucking the tarpaulin around his load. As we neared him, the dog started going crazy, barking and jumping towards the wheelbarrow, trying to pounce on whatever was beneath the tarpaulin. I thought, what is he doing with that wheelbarrow at this time of night? My friend started chatting to Tobin. She asked him, "What are you up to, Pete? What's in the wheelbarrow?" He cackled and said he was getting rid of some mud from his garden and picking up some hardcore for my pool. I steered my friend and the dogs away. Tobin freaked me out. Operation Anagram, which was headed by former Detective David Swindle, looked at more than 1,000 leads on Tobin, tracked down over 40 places where he had lived, and delved into any links they could find with unresolved murders or missing women in those areas. They narrowed the list to 9 unsolved crimes and missing person cases that they believed involved Tobin, who was originally from Johnston in Renfrewshire. But despite pleading with their psychotic killer to give closure to their families, he refused to even speak about the cases. 2 stood out, the deaths of Jessie Earle in 1980 and Louise Kay in 1988 in Eastbourne, Sussex, where Tobin had been living at the time, but there wasn't enough evidence to charge him. Mr. Swindle says we will never know the true extent of Tobin's horrendous crimes. He previously exclusively told the Glasgow Times, "This was an individual who took pleasure in torturing and murdering vulnerable women. There's no doubt in my mind that he's responsible for many more murders, but as I feared he would, he's taken the secrets to the grave with him." That article was by Stacey Mullen.
Evening Times, November 1. Remembering Glasgow's bonfire nights through the years. Lifestyle. Report by Anne Fotheringham. Big bonfire night celebrations in Glasgow could be a thing of the past, as the annual Glasgow Green Shindig has been cancelled for a 3rd year. Over the decades, the fireworks party has often been shifted to accommodate other big city events, usually football matches. In 2015, for example, it was a case of remember the 4th of November, when the spectacular celebration was moved to make way for Celtic's Europa League clash. The Parkhead side was playing against Norwegian team Molde. Police feared their resources would be stretched to the limit if both East End events went ahead on the same night. In 2008, the city's fireworks display was held a day later, on November 6, because of the Champions League clash between Celtic and Manchester United. In recent times, the popular fireworks display was moved once before, in 2003, when Celtic played Belgian side Anderlecht. The decision to move the event to November 4, however, does chime with history. It was actually November 4, 1605, when Sir Thomas Knivet found Guy Fawkes lurking in a cellar with 2 tons of gunpowder and a guilty expression. In his interrogation, Fawkes revealed he was a participant in an English Catholic conspiracy organised by Robert Catesby to annihilate England's entire Protestant government, including King James I. The King was to have attended Parliament the following day, which is probably why November 5 has stuck as the gunpowder plot anniversary. Even without the big celebration, people across Glasgow will still mark the occasion with fireworks and bonfires, and even, occasionally, penny for the guy runs around the neighbourhood. In Glasgow, over the decades, our photographers have captured bonfire night parties and celebrations around the city, says Anne Fotheringham. Evening Times, November 2. Lifestyle Memories. Glasgow clubbers remember 90s hotspots. Report by Anne Fotheringham. Peggy Sue's, GG's, Mardi Gras, Ultrathec. If you are a certain in vintage, these names from Glasgow's history will send you spiralling back to a colourful world of 90s dance music, strobe lights, fashionistas in their element, and more. Our Times Past feature on the great Glasgow clubs of the 90s and noughties prompted many of you to get in touch with some more fantastic suggestions. Pat Menzies told us, I worked in lots of Glasgow clubs and enjoy these trips down memory lane. One I very rarely see anything about is the Ultrathec, which was a sister club of Clatty Pat's, Cleopatra's. And what about the Mardi Gras down on Dunlop Street? The Ultrathec was located at 79 St Vincent Street. It's now Chaku Restaurant, and trivia fans once boasted the Blue Nile's P.J. Moore as a waiter in the early days of the band. The Mardi Gras on Dunlop Street opened in 1985. The venue, which had a capacity of about 650, was the first UK nightclub to have an elevated dance floor. Sandra Cassidy has an excellent collection of names to throw into the mix. Does anyone remember Clouds, the Rialto, Maestro on Scott Street, Waves and Spankies? Spankies was the first purpose-built discotheque in Glasgow when it opened on the Clydeside Walkway in 1974. It was the place to go and attracted a host of celebrities and footballers in its day. It changed name a few times in subsequent decades, so you might remember it as Waves, Manhattan, Panama Jacks, or Henry Africus. Panama Jacks was where Rod Stewart rocked the night away after his 1983 gig at Ibrox Stadium. There was Cube 2 on Queen Street, which opened at the end of the 90s and proved to be a hit with Glasgow clubbers, as well as famous faces like Will Young and Neil Lennon. Annette Taylor got in touch to tell us her favourite club in the 90s was Peggy's, Peggy Sue's, on George Street, now Waxy O'Connor's. She says, raving every weekend was great, especially during Glasgow's year as City of Culture, when all the pubs were open until 5 a.m. Thankfully, there were no mobile phones back then to watch us zombies vacate the premises, although I do have some personal pictures with friends stashed away. Annette, who describes herself as one of Peggy's posse, adds, I always took a change of clothes, as I was drenched in water from the scoochie guns I took to the venue and dished out. They were really popular. If I could turn the clock back to the year of culture, I would. Report by Anne Fotheringham. Evening Times, November 2. Opinion. Susan Aiken is looking back on a year since COP26. It's hard to believe it's been a year since Glasgow hosted COP26 and the eyes of the world were on our city during the biggest international summit ever staged in the UK. The Glasgow Climate Pact that emerged was far from perfect, but it was a major step towards keeping global temperature rises below 1.5 degrees centigrade, if only international leaders were willing to grasp the climate nettle. For Glasgow, COP confirmed our reputation for successfully hosting even the most complex global events. But it also did much more. It allowed us to show the world a city that has been transformed over the past 30 years and which is changing once again. An ambitious and innovative city, determined not to repeat our difficult history, and with a plan to deliver for our people and communities. In the build-up to COP26, Glasgow's key message had a significant influence on the climate debate. We made the case that climate and social justice are as interconnected in cities like ours as they are anywhere, and that climate is integral to how we deal with issues from fuel poverty to skills and jobs, and from public transport to health inequalities. Crucially, we added substance to the discussions around how cities can pay for the huge changes they must make, and that adapting to climate change presents significant opportunities for transforming our society and economy. In the 12 months since then, our world has changed, but the challenges we face internationally and locally are still intertwined with the climate crisis. Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the impact on energy costs has brought to the fore the need for our own secure and affordable sources of renewable energy. Similarly, the cost of living crisis has focused attention on the pressing need for warm and energy-efficient homes, for a more inclusive and sustainable economy, and for food security. It is clear, though, that these other pressing issues have been used by too many governments as an excuse for sidelining climate action, and there has been a global failure to deliver on the promise of the Glasgow Climate Pact. National governments must understand that targeting climate action offers many of the solutions to the other challenges we face, and that their failure to act will only make both global insecurity and hardship for households worse. Meanwhile, the existential threat to our planet remains. The latest report by the UN warns that with the current policies in place, the planet will warm by almost 3 centigrade this century. That would have catastrophic consequences for billions of people. And paying for the very real and growing consequences is going to cost many billions of pounds more than putting in place policies and investments to address it. Across the world, cities like Glasgow can and are transitioning to net zero. In Glasgow, we are ensuring that not only will the changes we make not place a burden on those on low incomes, but also that the transition will open opportunities and improve all our lives. We have been developing our Just Transition Skills Action Plan to support current and future workers through these changes to the economy, and will publish that shortly. And we have been progressing with the business plans for the interventions we need to have in place over the next decade to reduce emissions from buildings and transport and protect our city from rising temperatures and flood risk. When Glasgow passes the COP host baton to Sharm el-Sheikh next week, it is important that our voice is heard, not just to support the demands for greater action from international leaders, especially in the global south, but also to make the case for Glasgow. During the few days where I will attend COP27, I will meet major investors to discuss Glasgow's transformation plans, from the retrofit of hundreds of thousands of homes across the region to renewable heating systems, to Glasgow as a location for investment in the new green economy. Having positioned Glasgow as a city that's embracing transition, we have got to grab these major opportunities to build on our successful hosting of COP26. At the time of writing, there is no confirmation that the new Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, will show the leadership required and attend any of COP27. Real leadership means showing up, and a snub by the Prime Minister would further undermine the UK's already poor standing within the international community. Scotland, Glasgow, and indeed other cities in the UK cannot afford to abandon this critical agenda. The future of our communities and our planet is at stake. Glasgow is a multicultural, multi-ethnic city. In recent decades, we have developed a reputation as a city which embraces diversity and welcomes new Glaswegians, be they fleeing war and persecution or seeking to make a better life for themselves and their families. But we must be vigilant against complacency or congratulating ourselves too much. The despicable racism shown towards the children of St Albert's Primary in Pollokshields just last month was an all too bleak illustration of the dark underbelly of discrimination which still exists in Glasgow. In support of Islamophobia Awareness Month, I was proud to see my SNP colleagues bring forward a motion to last week's full council, calling on us all to continue efforts to tackle hate crimes and encourage the better reporting of incidents to the police. The motion also called for the adoption of the all-party parliamentary group's definition of Islamophobia to help better raise awareness of crime motivated by prejudice. Muslim members from across the two biggest political groups represented on the council gave some really horrific accounts of their direct experience of Islamophobia. It is a grim reality that such experiences should not come as a surprise, seeing as virtually all Scots Muslims have faced some sort of racism or harassment. Our Muslim fellow citizens have made a really positive contribution to the life of Glasgow. We want to see a city free from Islamophobia in all its forms. Our adoption of the APPG definition won't get rid of the problem, but it will certainly help us to be part of the solution, says Susan Aiken.
And that was this week's Glasgow Times News podcast, normally recorded in our studio at the Bishopbriggs Media Centre, currently recorded from our volunteers' homes with the publisher's kind permission. Thanks for listening.